September 2018, I'm done with UCL, and as I spoiled in previous chapters, I do go on to do a master's in chemical engineering, but the path towards it wasn't super straightforward either. Nothing ever seems to be at this point, does it? So I decided to pursue a little side venture. I actually wrote a maths textbook, but not like any maths textbook, let me tell you that. A maths textbook which teaches how every topic works inside and out, which details the proofs, which has exciting real-world and non-boring application questions such as space travel and roller coasters, plus a few with zombies, and has a friendly conversational tone that doesn't make readers feel bored or intimidated. Like, imagine if you had a channel like Animal Planet or Nat Geo or Discovery Channel, but for maths, which really instills a sense of wonder and discovery in you. That's what I was going for. Did it achieve it? I think so, but obviously that's up to the audience to decide. It was mostly inspired by the fact that my brother, who was about 17 at the time, was taking the A-level exams that I took years ago, and my cousins younger than him would also be taking it in the years coming, so I did it for them. On top of that, I also did it out of frustration for my teaching experience at UCL, the frustration of just having equations handed to me with no little explanation. So yeah, that was part of the inspiration process, and I also knew that it would be worth my while to improve my own numerical skills, because trust me, writing and teaching and instructing somebody actually really enhances the instructor's skill themselves, and I can honestly say it colossally improved my mathematical understanding, right? I can honestly admit, despite in my A-levels when I was 16, 17, 18, getting the highest grade in maths known as an A-star in the United Kingdom, I can honestly say that what I knew before writing the book was almost nothing compared to what I knew afterwards, and I mean it. I'm for real. So I cracked on month by month, chapter by chapter. I also had a meeting with that contact from Ineos. Whilst he said that work was technically very good and it worked out and all the design decisions made sense, he said unfortunately it wasn't profitable with respect to existing technology. Partially because the price of sodium hydroxide is very high, the selling price and in my design I used it all up. Within university, you're not going to have access to all the information in industry, or at least I didn't as an undergraduate, so I didn't feel too defeated about it or anything, but I did find it a little bit disappointing that, he just kind of left it point blank, sorry, it's not profitable, instead of, realizing the potential in my thought processes and my design skill and saying, hey, I see something in you, I like the way you think, you know what, I'm going to take you up, maybe give you some more information, yeah, let's work this thing out. Instead, it was just took the design at face value, and that is why R&D is very slow to happen, People don't see the potential. People don't see what the eyes don't see and what the ears don't hear. You know what I mean? Well, hopefully you do, and if you didn't, well, hopefully now you do. And yeah, adding to that, this guy was an R&D manager, so, if you ask me, he should have known better. Although, of course, part of that is me not getting what I wanted, but hey, you decide how much is to which and which. I asked him if I could get access to the chemical process software Aspen, because now I'm not a UCL student, I didn't have access to it, and he's like, sorry, employees only. So it was very kind of deflated like that. Cutthroat is too hard of a word to use, but I'm sure you know what I mean. It was just kind of nah, sorry, a bit deflating. So I told him, okay, fine, fair enough. With some of the new information you've given me, I'll do my calculations in Excel. To which he said, okay, let me know when you're done. In hindsight, it wasn't the smartest move for me to have pulled, given that, there was no reason for me to think that his attitude would change the next time, even if I had a good design, compared to the first time where he was just kind of nah, sorry, it's good, but it's not profitable, and then not seeing the potential in it. So, yeah, I shouldn't have expected something different, but maybe because I felt grateful towards him giving me the opportunity around the same time I received that 2-2, which I was pretty defeated about. Maybe emotionally I just gravitated towards it because it made me feel like I was working towards something and I had something going for me, But I will say this, right? I do not regret doing it because it helped in my masters. The stuff with that contact didn't end up going anywhere. I'll get to that later in the video, but let me just say, I'm so glad I did it because it made a massive difference both in my masters, and what I achieved in my masters actually helped me get the PhD. So, yeah, I don't know if it's lucky me or actually because I persisted with it, but yeah, it's one to think about. But either way, I'm fortunate to have things worked out for me because that could have went nowhere. So now shifting gears to internships, I applied to BP again. This time I get through the telephone interview with the STAR method, no worries there, and I have my technical interview booked for January of next year, because this was around November 2018. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't really into the idea of applying for a job anywhere else. Like, not only did most places not accept a 2-2, it would also, even for places that did accept a 2-2, I would pretty much be heavily disadvantaged. And plus, with the experience I had at UCL, I kind of withdrew and I kept within my comfort zone, because emotionally, I was still licking my wounds. I'll admit that. This did create some friction between me and my dad, who didn't quite see things my way. Come December 2018, me and my family went to India again to visit those same family friends, except this time we went to a part of India called Goa, which is very much touted as the Las Vegas of India. Like, it's got the best beaches and yeah, it's party and have fun central. Unfortunately though, I started to experience some sleep problems where I just couldn't sleep. I think on a subconscious level, it's because with where I was in my life, I didn't really feel like partying and celebrating. Even though I secured the BP technical interview, on a subconscious level, I didn't really feel like I knew what to do for it, for various reasons. Like, I didn't know what to expect, and that gave me some worry. On the morning of Christmas Eve, I only slept 3 hours, and then I went to scuba dive, which obviously can be tiring, especially when you barely slept. But unfortunately, on the morning of Christmas Day, the early hours, I didn't sleep whatsoever. And not sleeping for more than 24 hours is quite scary. I couldn't really partake in the Christmas fun and activities and whatever was going on that day. Although later in the day, I had a little meditate on the beach when everyone was jet skiing and various things. And yeah, with that meditate, I calmed myself down, and then I got to sleep a little bit. And yeah, the sleep cycle got fixed from there on out. But obviously, that's an unfortunate loss of a memory and an experience. Sometimes that's life, but it's a tough pill to swallow. Sometimes you lose out potential magical memories like that. One of the family friends, who's about a year or so younger than me, she was going through some mental health issues, so she confided in me for help. And I won't lie, considering I was in unclear waters with where my career was going, it was nice to be confided in and have a sense of purpose in helping people, because that's important too. Although I say that at the risk of sounding selfish for the sense of purpose in helping her being self-gratifying. But either way, yeah, I helped her out. So me and the family friends were discussing our New Year's resolutions, and I genuinely thought, at least on a conscious, maybe not necessarily subconscious level, that 2019 was going to be the year of my motherfucking life. Because at the time I thought, yeah, I'm totally going to get into BP this year. Which, spoiler alert, unfortunately I didn't this time again. Third time's a charm for next year, but for this second time, not so much. But yeah, for that in 2019, I thought it would be the year of my life with, fixing my career. On top of the fact that there was a wealth of movies and games coming out. There's Kingdom Hearts 3, there was Star Wars Episode 9, there was the Super Smash Bros. DLC, there was Toy Story 4, Frozen 2, Pokemon Generation 8, and yeah, so there was a lot going that year. So a little spoiler alert again, 2019 was an okay year overall. Not bad, but had really high highs and really low lows. But unfortunately, yeah, 2019 didn't turn out to be the very best. Once again, not necessarily bad, but obviously not what I was thinking it would have been. Once again, that is life. And yes, I realize with my taste in movies and games and the things that get me lit and turned and hyped up, I'm a bit of a man-child. But there are way worse ways to be a man-child than kid-ish movies and games. I'm gonna be real. So now, back in the UK, January 2019, it's time to prepare for that BP technical interview later in the month. So yeah, unfortunately, I prepared in the wrong way. I worked really hard, but in the wrong direction with a not so accurate perception of what was expected of me. The HR lady who was in contact with me was really, really nice, but obviously there was only so much she was allowed to communicate, and obviously she wouldn't fully understand how to process information for me, even if she was given it. So yeah, although HR lady helped me, there's only so much she could have done. I did know that the interview would revolve around the physics/mechanics aspects of chemical engineering, which are known as transport phenomena or transport processes. But here's the real crazy Matrix moment, right? You gotta be prepared for this one. I felt like this shit was fucking preordained, man, and nobody can convince me otherwise. So, for some fucking reason, the module convener for the transport phenomena module back in year 1 decides not to put the lecture material online, all the material online, and decides to sell us printed physical copies of the lecture material in booklet form. Which brings up another question as to why we're paying $9,000 and then we have to pay extra for lecture material. But, anyway. So yeah, basically, that was in first year. But my physical copy got destroyed when at home a jug of water fully spilled on it and just doused it. Like, not just chipped it, like, it basically got destroyed. So I had no material for that module and for that topic. When it dawned on me that maybe I should have asked the module convener for a new copy and just bought it, I was out of UCL because this was in 2018, so I had no way of getting it. And unfortunately, my buddy, he couldn't find his copy either. So now, come to the exam. They asked me some questions in a practical, technical style, which was completely alien to me and it was nothing like anything I'd been taught in the UCL Chemical Engineering department. So I overthought the shit out of it, and the interview didn't go well, and unfortunately I didn't pass. The question they asked me in the beginning was actually something right out of that transport phenomena module and the booklet I should have had. And the question, I actually did that and got it right in an exam years before. So unfortunately, due to lack of perception of expectations, my mind was on the fritz, and I effed it up. However, I want to say I do not blame BP whatsoever. Based on the assessment, I think everything they asked me was completely fair, and I knew there were restrictions between what HR could tell me. So I want to get this straight. I have no ill will towards BP, even though I didn't pass that year. And I know I say what I say at the risk of sounding like I keep blaming UCL even for things that don't go my way even after I've left UCL, but unfortunately, I say what I say, I have to say it. UCL's teaching left gaps in my knowledge and my skill set and my mindset, the effects of which were felt after the degree at UCL. And I can say this, I feel like I'm justified to say that, given that at my master's, which once again was at a higher ranked place, more reputable place, things went way better and the style of teaching was completely different. So I do have a frame of reference when I keep throwing shade UCL Chemical Engineering Department's way. So I wanted to get that straight. Anyway, I continued working on the independent engineering project for that contact in INEOS, doing my calculations in Excel, even in New Jersey when I went there for my cousin's 21st birthday. I got good results with my design and I optimized it with Excel Solver, and the energy integration overall energy reduction was 37% from the unintegrated design. So that's pretty considerable. That's over 1/3 energy reduction. And I was pretty happy with what I came up with. And also around that time, I published the first iteration of the maths textbook. And I emailed the report to that contact for reading, which he got back to some months later. So back on the note of the maths textbook, right? So I published it on teachable.com. And because all the marketing was new to me, I got a grand total of 5 sales. It's better than nothing, but it's not exactly a explosive start. We didn't exactly start things with a bang. Although I understand why. Naturally, people are going to be apprehensive of an up-and-coming new product from someone they've never heard before, on top of the fact that my presentation could have been a lot more professional. And although I always thought that because I spoke to my brother and people that age and they were really frustrated with maths, I assumed that meant that they would really want a textbook to cover the gaps and things like that. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. And basically I overestimated the market demand for what I was selling in the maths textbook. Although I came to learn this years after, what I didn't realize at the time is because the exam new syllabus and the new set of exams are so rigorous, most students didn't have the time and the mental headspace to understand it, even though that would have helped them. They would have preferred to just do practice questions and just kind of get it out of the way. So that's interesting because even though I was selling a product that was tailored for their needs, what they needed wasn't what they wanted. It's complex like that. It's one to think about. I can't lie though, when I was doing some of the proofs for the calculus equations that I studied years ago, I felt like Captain America in Avengers Endgame because the movie was out at the same time. I actually felt like a superhero for doing those proofs. And that's something I held on to, Sometimes things are tough, but you've got to find something positive to hold on to because it can really carry you through. So moving on, one internship I applied for was actually interested in interviewing me. And around the same time, the INEOS contact came back and said, can we arrange a phone call? And around the same time, my brother's last few exams were just before the interview on the Friday, that week. So I was up late night, most of that week, producing study notes for him. So basically, the night before the interview on the Friday, I found it really hard to sleep. So I stupidly decided to pop antidepressant to help me sleep at 3 a.m. And it didn't help that at 6 a.m. one of my friends, like drunk, called me from Texas. So I went into that interview like first thing in the morning, kind of sleepy and drugged up. However, it still went well, even though I didn't get the place, which I'll get to in a moment. They really, really liked me. They understood why I got a 2-2 because I explained to them my neurodiversity, and they really liked my stance on innovation. They really liked me. I told them my stance on it. Like, they asked me, what is innovation? And I told them it's recognizing and capitalizing on the gray areas between what is known and what isn't known. And they loved that. But here's the kicker. So they asked me, like, what else have you got lined up for you? And in my mind, I was thinking, because I have a 2-2, I have to mention that I've been doing some kind of work. So I mentioned the work I've been doing for that Ineos contact that I had to call with that got delayed to the Monday after. But yeah, I told them about that, like how the rigors of it and what I've learned from it. And like, I'm expecting the call, thinking that it would convey to them that I'm doing work and like I'm still got the skill and I'm wanted. But that backfired on me because they then got the idea that that thing was kind of like in the bag, perhaps. And I think that's why I didn't get the place, because they thought I had something else lined up, because they asked repeatedly. But I realized that in mentioning that, not in mentioning that, I realized with the position I was in, I shot myself in the foot, right? Because basically, when you're in a position where you have something like that potentially lined up, there's two outcomes. One, you get it, you're going to go for it. And obviously that would mean that it would be clear to them that you'd reject the job you're interviewing for if you got that thing. But the other outcome is like, if the contact says no, right, then that must mean the design's not that good, and that must mean I'm not good. So I was kind of between a rock and a hard place, and I fucking shot myself in the foot. So with the interview, like, I heard it was unsuccessful. Maybe it wasn't because of that. Maybe there was someone better. So on Monday, I have the call with the guy, and he just tells me the same thing as last time. Like, it's great work, but it's not profitable with respect to other technologies. No, I like the way you think, like, let's do some more, let me give you some like software and like enter you into the company. No, nothing. It was just like that. And it's also, maybe it's a Matrix moment, but it's such a fucking piss take. Like, if he wasn't that interested in the work, could he not have just emailed me before? Like, what was the point of that phone call? Maybe it's the Matrix guiding me to the place I was going to be in some years, but like, I realized that, 2-2 aside from UCL, like, some of my naive mindsets were not making my life any easier. Like, I acknowledge that, Maybe living in Dream Street that way was like a healing mechanism or something. But yeah, like, I acknowledge that it wasn't making my life much easier. But at least I learned about the corporate world without losing my enthusiasm for innovation, because that's the important thing. I realized that, like, I fell in love with innovating in chemical engineering, but unfortunately that clouded my judgment pretty badly. It's something I learned more in the years to come, but that was the start of the learning curve, that there is a way the world works. It's not to say it's impossible to overcome, but, my naivety was a very double-edged sword. Like, there was a positive because it led me to producing these innovations and developing the creative part of my brain, the innovative part of my brain as applied to maths and science and engineering, but obviously it was fucking biting my ass too. I will say that I think in the long term, it worked out better this way, even if it wasn't perfect, right? Because, like, the more realistic, grounded type people who know how the world works, because they may be put off by that, they may not develop the creative parts of their brains and, like, produce some really innovative designs. So even though they know how to maneuver the working world, the corporate world, when they get to somewhere, they don't have something to deliver. They haven't produced something. Whereas in my case, although I was naive and I was like not getting anywhere in the corporate world like that, I developed the creative part of my brain like up to the age of 25 and beyond, because I know at least in males, 25 is when the brain is developed. So yeah, even though right now, like, it was causing me blockages, at least I've developed that creative, innovative part of my brain as applied to maths, engineering, and science, so that now when I'm speaking, I know how to maneuver the corporate world. I'll have something to deliver when I get to a good place in the corporate world. So anyway, I emailed some other companies some like pitches for my designs, not just the VCM design for that Ineos contact, but also the sustainable engineering design to like places like World Wildlife Fund, etc. And unfortunately, like, yeah, I hear nothing back. Like, apart from one, like, thanks but no thanks, maybe try this place, like, from a few people, which, to be honest, was, like, surprisingly refreshing when most places don't say nothing back to you. Funnily enough, I actually secured an internship with the UNCCD, which is the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. However, Like, I found that when I spoke to the HR, that the internship was falsely advertised. The role was advertised as managing and conveying technical information on desertification, which I thought was great for an internship, but it just turned out to be a fucking glorified social media influencer type job. On top of that, I would have had to move to Germany. It wouldn't have even been remote. So I said, you know what? Nah, yeah, you guys lied to me. Like, no. I'm disappointed, UNCCD, but, or at least whoever I was dealing with in that case. But yeah, I said, nope, so long. So around this time of year, it was time to apply for BP again, for the third time, which did turn out to be the charm. Then COVID fucked it all up, but I'll get to that in a moment. So the technical interview was in March 2020, so a bit later than the January of 2019. At this point, I really prepared properly, having learned from the technical, practical way of thinking that like BP wanted of me, and that was good in general. I wasn't given the answer from the BP interview, but I understood what to do, how to think and everything, and I applied it to all of my subjects. So now, onto the exam. Pardon me, not exam, the interview. So, March 2020, the night before the interview, I couldn't fucking sleep again because the stakes were sky high. Like, this was my final chance to, like, get somewhere. This was the be-all, end-all. This was the final boss. So, I do the same stupid things I do last time. In a panic, I take 2 antidepressants, which zonked me out, so I slept like 2 hours and I was on drugs. So, obviously, I was already disadvantaged in that way, but I was adamant, like this was time to make my motherfucking life. So I went into the exam, like the question they gave me was quite out of the box and different, and for a moment I stuttered, and I kind of saw my life flash before my eyes, right? I thought about the stakes, what would happen if I failed, and like how I would feel, how mentally shattered I would be if I failed the interview 2 times in a row. So for that moment, I was drowning in my negative thoughts until I, in my head, put my fist down and said, I'm taking control of my motherfucking life. So I get a hold of myself, I get my shit together, and then I answer the question, and they said it was right. They asked me some more questions, and they really liked my answers. In fact, the interview got extended from half an hour to about 1.5 hours, and they really liked me. I could feel it, right? I knew that this time I had made it. They started asking me more open-ended questions, which they liked the answers again, and the key thing, this is how I knew I passed this interview. They started speaking to me about the job role as though I was going to start it. They gave me details on how the internship would work and even were nice enough to ask me how I was getting home. I made it because I was done wallowing away from home. I knew this interview was do or die, and I did. As in, I did what I was supposed to do. I didn't die. But then everything changed when coronavirus attacked. In April of 2020, in lockdown conditions, the world was just teetering on the edge per se. I got a call from the HR lady. She said, you passed the interview, you did well, but unfortunately this position has been cancelled due to the effects, the repercussions of the COVID on the BP business. I was naturally disappointed, but I was happy to hear that, at least I'd passed that. I asked her, could you give me a statement in writing confirming I passed the interview? Because, I invested a lot of time in this and, even though COVID is taking it away, if I get at least that could at least help me with getting the next thing afterwards. And she said, yeah, sure. She was lovely. I got to tell you, the BP staff, the BP HR, everyone at BP in, London at least, I don't know why it's like everywhere else, but everyone in BP in London, they're angels, man. They're real gems. Maybe not for the oil spill back in 2011, but the BP now, there are some nice people in there. I was going to say, for those people, God bless BP. A really interesting thing happened in COVID. Even though obviously it was no fun being isolated and locked in your motherfucking house and not being able to talk to people. Because I was only talking to the people I was closest with, although the quantity of people I was talking to naturally just plummeted, right? The quality really increased, and that's when I actually felt really good. I felt great, the people that made me feel like 100 men. So in that way, there's something weird I actually miss about COVID, but not necessarily about COVID. It's just having high quality over quantity of people, and that's something that anyone can apply to their lives at any point. Or maybe because I'm a pretty big sufferer of FOMO. Fear of missing out, even now. Maybe because it was the pandemic and I knew there weren't motives and stuff like that I was missing out on. The FOMO disappeared because there was nothing to miss out on, and it put me at peace. So, I had this realization right when recording this video. The next thing I'm going to work on to be my best self and happiest self, I'm going to work on my FOMO. It did soon dawn on me that with the COVID market, it's not like jobs are going to be abundant. And given that I passed the BP interview and I've learned so much, maybe it's time to actually do a master's somewhere different than UCL. So I applied to Nottingham University for a chemical engineering MSc. Once again, I got to reiterate this. I've always known Nottingham was a great place, even from the open day that I went to all the way back in 2013. And I looked on the chemical engineering league tables, and at this point in 2020, it was a fair bit higher than UCL, like by not just by one place, but by a number of places. It may have even been like 5 places, but I can't remember the exact number, but a fair number. I remember back in the day, UCL was slightly higher than Nottingham. Nottingham was very close behind, but UCL was better, but things have obviously changed, right? So I applied, and at first, it was a rejection on the basis of the grade, because the admin thought that like UCL would have taken care and like incorporated into my degree if mitigating circumstances affected my grade, which obviously they didn't because they just left me in the dark. So that was their reasoning. So basically I explain my position to them, reason with them, tell them I'm neurodiverse and like unfortunately like UCL didn't take it into account, etc. And like I send them all my pitch decks and the presentations I sent people that nobody responded to last year, and I send them everything. I threw the entire kitchen sink and the bathroom at them, like proverbially speaking. I also sent them the email confirming that I passed the technical interview from BP to them. And like, so it was on my birthday. I then said to them, like, okay, like this is the final thing I want to send you. And at this point, like, if the final answer is no, like you have my word that I won't contest it and I'll take it honorably and gracefully. So then the administrator says, okay, I feel you. I'm going to pass your application to the course tutor, the head of the course for chemical engineering, MSc. And on my birthday, I then get the email saying, you have been accepted into the course. And let me tell you, I think that was the greatest birthday present I've received in my entire damn life. Like I was popping off hard. Like me and my friends and family were like in the park and like having some drinks. And like when I found that email, I chugged a whole jug of pineapple juice and it went all fucking over me and I didn't care. I was like, wow! Like I was running around like a fucking madman. Like, and the weather was beautiful that day. That had to have been one of the best birthdays of my life. One of the best days of my life. Like, no question. It may have even been the best day. That's going to conclude what there was to talk about for this episode, because the next episode will naturally go into detail about the events of the MSc. But I want to conclude by saying this. If you believe in your heart of hearts that you're destined for something and you can do something, even if you have favors and past credentials that don't work towards your favor, go for it and don't give up. Like, put your all into it, because that can make or break your life. It's do or die, right? Put your all into it. Because let me tell you, right, in this master's, I not only rectified my grade, I have made great friends, and I found a very special lady in my life. And that wouldn't have happened if I just took no for an answer the first time. Obviously, be cordial, be respectful, behave properly. Like, don't lose your emotions or anything like that. But if you know in your heart of hearts that you can do something and it will change your life and enter you into the next chapter of life, and you can have the time of your life, like when you're applying for something and you might get an answer no at first, go for it. Go for it. Show them what you're made of, how much it means to you, what you can do, and how much you want it. So that'll conclude this video. And as usual, thank you for listening. Have a nice day and peace out.